The Federal Reserve just walked into a corner it cannot walk out of. Inflation is not falling, the war in the Gulf is crushing supply lines, and the man who ran the International Monetary Fund says markets are behaving like children at a birthday party while the house is quietly burning down. And today I want to show you exactly how that fire starts, because by the end of this video, you will understand why every paycheck you earn this year is going to buy you less. We will also talk about a $3 billion lifeline that just rewrote the map of Asia, a quiet war on drug boats nobody in Washington wants to debate, and a scandal in the House of Representatives that is pulling down both parties at the same time. Stay with me. Let me start with the story that really keeps me up at night. The head of Citadel, one of the largest hedge funds on the planet, spoke in Washington this week and used a phrase I have not heard in years. He called this moment very, very treacherous for the world economy. He said a classic energy price shock is unfolding in real time, and that will crush demand, slow growth across every continent, and force central banks into impossible choices. Now look, when a hedge fund billionaire uses language like that in public, you can safely assume that inside his firm the mood is 10 times darker, because billionaires do not panic out loud, they hint. And the former chief economist of the International Monetary Fund, now teaching at Harvard, went even further. He said markets have simply decided that everything is fine and that belief is dangerously naive. Listen to what he actually argued. Real interest rates, the ones your mortgage and your small business loan are tied to, are being pushed up, not down. Why? Because military spending is exploding, populism is back in fashion, and debt levels almost everywhere have broken records. The Federal Reserve keeps repeating the same calm line. Do not worry about the tariffs. Do not worry about the oil shock. Do not worry about the next thing. But here is the catch. After enough cycles of do not worry, people start paying attention to their grocery bill instead of the press release. And once inflation expectations unanchor, the Fed has no easy way back. Surveys from Harvard show that most Americans cannot even define inflation, but they absolutely know when eggs cost twice as much. That is the doorway to stagflation, and we are already stepping through it. And now here is the really interesting part. The European Central Bank is in even deeper trouble. Its own president admitted this week, in a rare moment of honesty on Bloomberg, that Eurozone inflation could land anywhere between roughly 2.5% and well above 4%. That is not a forecast. That is a shrug dressed up in a suit. And she said it out loud because she understands that 20% of the goods Europe depends on simply do not move through the Gulf anymore. Fertilizer, microchips, petrochemicals, every ingredient of modern life, all pinched in the same bottleneck. You know what that means in plain language? The richest continent in the world is telling its own citizens that the cost of bread, heating, and medicine is about to rise, and there is nothing a central bank can do to stop it. And yet back in Washington, the mood is business as usual. Unreal. Before we go deeper, I want to ask a small favor. If any of this sounds useful, please hit like and subscribe, and share this with one person who needs to hear it. We spend hours every morning going through dozens of primary sources and fact-checking everything you see in this video, and we do that to keep you away from the noise machines. If you want to go one step further, YouTube Super Thanks keeps the lights on. And stay until the very end, because the most uncomfortable story of the day is waiting there. Now here is the part the Federal Reserve absolutely does not want on the front page. The dollar is quietly losing Asia, and I mean that literally. When the Iranian regime signaled that any safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz could be paid in yuan or in crypto, most American analysts treated it as theater. The former IMF economist treated it as confirmation. Because Asia is half the dollar bloc and that half is already dominated by China, Beijing has spent years quietly building its own payment rails, its own back office, its own swap lines, and it is already switching most of its imports out of dollars. And now Iran said the quiet part out loud. What is the point of asking for dollars if the same country that prints them can sanction you tomorrow? The Bloomberg Dollar Index, by the way, has almost wiped out every gain it made since the war started. So while your evening news tells you the greenback is safe, the currency of Asia is quietly moving somewhere else. And now I want to pause and show you a story that proves the same shift in real time. Saudi Arabia just wired $3 billion to Pakistan in emergency deposits after Pakistan failed to roll over an identical loan with the United Arab Emirates. Think about the geometry of that for a second. One oil monarchy walks away, another oil monarchy jumps in, and the country that catches the lifeline is a nuclear power sitting between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. This is not charity. This is Riyadh redrawing its alliance map in real time under the cover of the war. And while all of that happens, Saudi officials are also quietly negotiating to host American troops and equipment on their own soil because the old security architecture of the region is simply gone. Gone. You understand what that means? The country that once called America its unbreakable partner is now buying insurance in every direction at once. But that is only half the story. Let me tell you how the war is reaching into your daily life, whether you realize it or not. The International Monetary Fund downgraded global growth this week from 3.3% down to 3.1%, and in the same breath it called this the biggest stagflation shock since the pandemic. A naval blockade near the Gulf has cut traffic through the region by more than 90%. Prices of diesel, jet fuel, fertilizer, aluminum, even helium have already jumped. And you know what happened next? A plastic crisis in South Korea that no one saw coming. Factories there that make packaging for cosmetics are running at 10 to 20% of normal output and telling clients to wait 8 weeks instead of 2. When peace comes back, we will find out whether companies crawl back to cheap plastic or whether they simply walk away and build everything out of paper. That is the kind of structural change that does not reverse. So the next time you pick up a bottle of shampoo, remember where that price came from. And now the story I promised you at the start. The one nobody in Washington wants to discuss openly. The United States House of Representatives is living through an ethics storm that is taking down members of both parties at the same time. 2 lawmakers just walked out to avoid expulsion votes. One Republican congressman quit after reports of an affair with a former staffer who later took her own life. A Democrat resigned under similar pressure. A congresswoman from Florida was found guilty of 25 ethics charges, with federal prosecutors circling a $5 million fraud allegation. Another Republican is under investigation for financial wrongdoing and violence. This while the Congress is supposed to debate whether drone strikes on boats in the Pacific that have already cost roughly 170 people their lives are even legal under American law. Critics in the Democratic caucus are openly calling them extrajudicial actions at sea, and the chamber that is supposed to stop this cannot even keep its own seats filled. You see where this is going. The Federal Reserve cannot cut. The dollar is leaking. The House cannot govern, and every new headline about ships, sanctions, and stagflation feeds the same loop. I am not here to tell you to panic. I am here to tell you to pay attention because the moment the rest of the country notices, the math changes for everyone. If this video made the fog a little clearer, do me one favor, subscribe. Leave a comment telling me which of these stories scares you the most because I read every single reply. And I will see you tomorrow with another slice of the world you are not supposed to see.